I'm the center of my parents' world. They turn my bedroom into every little boy's dream, with soccer balls, Lego sets, and Transformers everywhere. They even spend a fortune installing a bathtub for me, because I love taking baths. They always tell my little brother, Jason Tucker, that he has to protect me for the rest of my life. But everything changes when I take him into a hot bath with me, and he accidentally chokes on water. Mommy loses it. She grabs me by the throat and screams, "We thought you'd learn to care for your brother. After all the love we gave you, we never imagined you'd turn out to be so ungrateful," and try to drown him. I shake my head frantically, but Mommy shoves me into the washing machine without hesitation. "You like taking baths, don't you? I'll give you a bath you'll never forget." Mommy and Daddy take Jason out to play, but they fail to realize that they have accidentally pressed the washing machine start button. The water keeps rising, but I can't climb out as I'm tangled up with the clothes. I struggle to open my eyes and see Mommy and Daddy returning. I don't want to take baths anymore. Can Mommy and Daddy stop being mad at me? The washing machine rumbled, and I frantically pounded on it, wanting to get out. "Mommy, Daddy," the washing machine started. "Let me out." Water kept pouring in from the pipe, and I curled up inside the washing machine. It wasn't long before water had risen to my chest. I panicked and choked on water several times. But Mommy and Daddy just walked around holding Jason as he coughed. "Daddy, Mommy, I just choked on water, too." I tried to call out to them. If only they would look back at me. All it would take was one look, and they could get me out of here. I pushed against the washing machine door with all my strength, but did not budge an inch. I remembered Mommy and Daddy saying they were afraid I would climb into the washing machine and play. So they had deliberately bought one with a child lock feature. Once the door closed, it couldn't be opened again. The washing machine drum slowly began to spin, and the cold metal pressed against my skin. Suddenly, the whole world shook violently and began to spin. An unstoppable force threw me up and slammed me down. Over and over again, my body slammed violently against the hard metal drum, and a heavy thunk rang out. I tried screaming for help, but the moment I opened my mouth, the scented, soapy water kept rushing into my mouth and nose. "Daddy, Mommy," I was starting to feel dizzy and suffocated. I forced my eyes open, hoping to see Mommy and Daddy, but all I saw was them holding Jason in their arms, frantically getting him dressed. Philip really let me down. He's already doing this to Jason when we're right here. I don't even want to imagine what he does when we're not around. We really have to teach him a lesson this time. "What do we do, honey?" Jason's been coughing all day, and he's not getting any better. His face is all red. "We need to get to the hospital now." The first spin cycle of the washing machine stopped, and the water that I'd been choking on finally drained away. But more water slowly began pouring in. Terrified, I used all my strength to pound on the washing machine. "Daddy, Mom, Mommy, please save me. I really can't take it anymore." Mommy froze while she was getting dressed and hurried over to me. "Mommy, please save me." Hope welled up within me. I knew Mommy only wanted to teach me a lesson. In the future, I would be more careful and never hurt Jason again. Mommy reached toward the washing machine, but she did not open the door. Instead, she stood nearby and pointed at me, disappointment written all over her face. "You still don't know what you did wrong, do you? And now you're taking your anger out on the washing machine." Caleb Tucker, your brother's only 2 years old. He had just learned to talk, and he already knew how to say your name. How could you bring yourself to hurt him? Stay in there and think about what you've done. We've been too good to you. That's why you've become so spoiled and arrogant. I shook my head, crying. I could feel the water slowly running down my back. The first spin cycle had left me dizzy, but I forced myself to bang on the washing machine and to respond to Mommy instead. It only made her even angrier. Mommy was so angry that she kicked the washing machine. "Are you really going to defy me now? That wasn't my intention." "Mommy." The water was going to fill the entire washing machine soon. By then, I wouldn't be able to hold on. I began wishing the water would rise faster, just a little faster, and Mommy would realize something was wrong and let me out. After hearing a beep, I forced myself to brace, my arms and legs against the inside of the washing machine. I just had to hold on a little longer. Once Mommy opened the door, I would be safe. As the washing machine started spinning again, Daddy walked over holding Jason in his arms. "Darling, we can deal with Caleb later. I need to get to the hospital now." I didn't want them to leave. I watched Mommy turn and walk away with my own eyes. The front door slammed shut behind her. The next moment, the washing machine started spinning violently again. My world started spinning, and I was tossed around inside like a discarded rag. When I opened my eyes again, I was floating in midair. I thought I had been rescued, and immediately left the house to look for my parents. But I didn't want to upset Mommy and Daddy again, so I stayed at home like a good kid and fell asleep next to my Transformers. I didn't know how much time had passed when the door opened again. Mommy and Daddy came home with Jason, and he was holding a huge electric toy car. Good thing Jason's fine. Otherwise, Caleb would have been in serious trouble. Jason went through so much today. We'll give him this toy car to make it up to him. Mommy deliberately called out toward the washing machine. From now on, whoever gets hurt will get a present. The bully will be grounded. Mommy and Daddy exchanged a glance and strained to listen for any sounds coming from the washing machine. After a long time, there was still no response. They furrowed their brows and sneered. Huh, do you see that? He's still sulking. If he wants to stay there, let him. The washing machine isn't even running. It's not like he'll die there. Floated back and forth in front of Mommy and Daddy. I was already out of the washing machine. Couldn't they see me? I wasn't soaking at all. Could they stop talking about me like that? I kept trying to talk to Mommy and Daddy, but they acted as if they couldn't see me. They didn't even make eye contact with me. I wanted to touch them, but my hand passed right through their bodies. It was only then that I realized I had died in the washing machine. I ran over there to take a look. Inside the washing machine was a small body, curled up in an unnatural position. Was that me? I turned around and saw Mommy and Daddy playing with Jason. Get it? That was Mommy and Daddy's punishment for me. Maybe this was for the best. I wouldn't have to change Jason's diapers anymore. Ever since he was born, Mommy and Daddy hadn't given me their full attention in a long time. If I were dead, did that mean I could stay with my parents forever? I suppressed the ache in my chest and forced a smile. Later, Daddy made my favorite pork ribs for dinner. After feeding Jason, they sat at the dining table, their faces grim as they looked toward the washing machine. Daddy spoke first. Caleb, come out and eat. The only response they got was Jason's babbling. Mommy impatiently slammed her bowl on the table. If you don't want to eat, fine. How did you become this way? You messed up, and now you're throwing a tantrum. Fine, don't eat. Then I'll just pretend I never had a son like you. Everyone says parents can't help but favor one over the other. Once they have two kids, I thought if we treated you well enough, you'd be good to Jason, too. I never thought we'd end up spoiling you. And you become so arrogant and domineering. You're such an ungrateful brat. Forget about him. It must be really uncomfortable in the washing machine. He too spoiled for that. He wouldn't have stayed in there for so long. I bet he's already gone back to his room. I sat next to Mommy and Daddy, listening to their conversation. My eyes began to sting. Mommy, I never wanted to hurt Jason. I just wanted to help give him a bath. Mommy and Daddy decided to ignore me. They ate most of the pork ribs, and Mommy took the leftovers outside and fed them to stray dogs. I'd rather have a dog than a son like Caleb. I didn't dare follow Mommy and Daddy anymore, so I stayed curled up alone in my room. They always looked so happy when they played with Jason. At the moment, they were reading him a picture book, and I hadn't heard Mommy's gentle voice in a very long time. I fell asleep while listening to them, but it wasn't long before I heard Mommy call out to me. Caleb, Jason's looking for you again. Come out now and play with him. I stared silently at my closed bedroom door, thinking, Mommy, I'm already dead. I wish I could help you, but I can't do it anymore. If only you would open the washing machine door and take a look, you'd realize that I'm already dead. Caleb, haven't you had enough? I've had it with you. The living room fell silent for a moment. Mommy then stormed over and opened my bedroom door, with Daddy right on her heels. The sight of the empty room made them freeze for a moment. Daddy looked around the room and even checked under the bed. Where's Caleb? I thought Mommy and Daddy would start panicking and rush over to the washing machine to check on me. But Mommy's expression hardened. That brat's becoming impossible to control. Where else could he have gone? He must have snuck off to his grandma's while we were gone, to tattle on us. How did he get so spoiled? You think you can play games with me? Fine, I'll show you. Mommy turned around and stormed over to my transformers. She snapped off their heads, arms and legs before throwing them onto the floor and stomping on them. I started sobbing and tried to push Mommy away, but I couldn't stop her. I really wasn't throwing a tantrum. I wanted to be with Mommy and Daddy, too, but I was trapped inside the washing machine forever. Daddy let out a sigh. Forget it. We don't have time for Caleb now. Since he's at his grandma's, we can relax for a bit. I'll go do Jason's laundry. Was Daddy about to do laundry? I followed him out of the room. Daddy picked up some clothes and walked toward the washing machine. My heart started racing. I hoped Mommy and Daddy would find me soon, yet I was afraid the sight of me would scare them. Once Daddy found me, surely, Mommy would realize I hadn't been throwing a tantrum all this time. I knew it was useless, but I still tried to cover Daddy's eyes with my hands. Before he could even bend down and open the washing machine door, Mommy called out to him, You can't put Jason's clothes in the washing machine. Wash them by hand. Feeling defeated, I lower my hands and look back at the figure inside the washing machine. Trapped in that cramped space, my body seemed to be already bloating and faint. Foul odor had begun to linger. I already been gone for 2 days. It wasn't until the second night that Daddy urged Mommy to call Grandma Elena. Ask your mom if Caleb's been behaving himself over there. Is he okay? Mommy reluctantly picked up her phone and called Grandma Elena, while mumbling to herself, that kid's old enough could possibly happen to him? Sometimes I get so angry when I look at him. Other people's sons know how to help around the house, take care of their little brothers, and do chores. I can't believe I ended up raising such a thoughtless brat. He's better off dead. I looked down and picked my fingers. I was so upset that I couldn't even say a word. Mommy, you got what you wanted. As soon as the call connected, Mommy got straight to the point. Mom, Caleb went to your house. Didn't he? Has he been bothering you? Grandma Elena's voice grew louder on the other end of the phone. What did you just say? I thought Grandma Elena was asking, because she couldn't believe what she had just heard. But the next thing she said was, what did you just say? I can't hear you. Speak louder. The hope in my eyes faded once again. Just as Mommy was about to say something, Jason suddenly burst into tears. She never got the chance to say what she was about to say. Oh, it's nothing. I need to check on Jason. Over the next few days, Mommy and Daddy made no effort to look for me again. Daddy went back to his normal work routine. Suddenly, Jason started spitting up his milk and refusing to eat. Grown terribly worried, Mommy rushed him to several hospitals, but nothing seemed to help. It wasn't until she heard that Miss Cahill knew, a remarkably skilled doctor, that she finally caught a glimmer of hope. He quickly gave Miss Cahill a call, her tone dripping with obvious flattery. Hey, Taylor, your son hasn't played with Caleb in a while. I'll bring Caleb over in a few days so they can play together. Those words sent a chill down my spine. I used to play with Kingsley, Miss Cahill's son, and he always bullied me. Kingsley used to hit me on the head with a chair and make me throw stones at kittens. I was so scared that I had nightmares for an entire month. Mommy and Daddy had always forbidden Kingsley from seeing me. She said Kingsley was a violent kid and even seriously injured another kid's eyes. Before Miss Cahill snorted on the other end of the phone, I thought Caleb didn't like playing with my son. Mommy became a little more deferential. Taylor, I heard, a brilliant doctor. My younger son has been refusing to eat lately. Could you take me to see him sometime when you're free? By then, I'll bring Caleb over too and let him play with your son. Our kids can keep each other company. My heart sank. How could Mommy put me at risk just to find a doctor for Jason? I was starting to wish I could leave this house, but I couldn't go anywhere. It was as if I was still bound to my parents. Kept hoping someone would find me soon. One day, my grandparents on both sides of the family suddenly came to our house, just as my parents were getting ready to take Jason out. They were all carrying presents wrapped in my favorite color, purple. Were those presents all for me? I was a little excited, but Mommy frowned at the sight of those presents. How many times do I have to tell you this? You have to treat both your grandsons equally. Why are all the presents for Caleb? Where are Jason's gifts? Jason may be young, but he's not stupid. You're gonna hurt him if you keep this up. You can't play favorites with your grandchildren. Grandma Natasha brought in a chocolate cake, looking somewhat displeased. The mother, how could you forget your oldest son's birthday? It's Caleb's birthday today. Of course, we only brought presents for him. I felt a warmth spread through me. Grandpa Owen, Grandma Natasha, Grandpa Justin, and Grandma Elena still remembered my birthday. I was still loved. After all, the chocolate cake was sweet and delicious, just the way I liked it. I circled around the chocolate cake and couldn't help rubbing my cheek against Grandma Natasha's arm. Grandma Natasha looked around the house. Where's Caleb? Mommy and Daddy froze for a moment, flicker of embarrassment crossing their faces. They quickly turned to Grandma Elena. Mom, we were just about to pick Caleb up from your place. Since you were coming over for his birthday, why didn't you bring him along? Grandpa Justin and Grandma Elena frowned. Did you two even drop Caleb off at our house? I think you two have been so busy that you lost track of things. With that, my grandparents took off their shoes and headed toward my room. Where are you, Caleb? Come out, sweetheart. Look what I got for you for your birthday. Mommy and Daddy exchanged a glance, standing frozen at the doorway. Grandma Natasha looked around the house but still couldn't find me. Finally, she came out. Where's Caleb? When was the last time you saw him? Mommy and Daddy started trembling uncontrollably. Without a word, they found themselves looking toward the washing machine. The silence in the house suddenly became deafening. It was as if the air itself had turned a lead, pressing down on all of us. I floated above the chocolate cake, watching the color rapidly drain from Mommy's face. She looked like a ghost, paler than I was. Daddy's breathing hitched, his eyes darting frantically between my grandparents and the sleek, white door of the machine. Grandma Elena caught their gaze. She frowned, taking a step toward the laundry area. Why are you looking at that thing? Taylor, where's my grandson? He's, he's not in there, Mommy stammered, her voice trembling so violently she sounded like a stranger. She took a step back, her heel catching on the edge of the rug. He couldn't be. It's been days. What's been days? Grandpa Justin demanded, his voice thick with rising panic. He was a large, imposing man, and he didn't wait for Mommy to answer. He pushed past Daddy, his heavy footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. As Grandpa Justin got closer to the machine, he stopped. I saw his nose twitch. Grandma Natasha, who had followed right behind him, brought a hand up to her mouth. "What is that smell?" she whispered. I looked down at myself. As a ghost, I didn't smell like anything, but I knew what they were smelling. I'd been trapped in that damp, airtight drum for 5 days. The scented laundry detergent had long lost its battle against the reality of what happens to a body left in stagnant water and summer heat. "Don't open it," Daddy suddenly shrieked, his voice cracking into a pathetic high-pitched sob. He lunged forward, grabbing Grandpa Justin's arm. "Please, Justin, don't open it. He's at your house. He has to be at your house." But Grandpa Justin shoved Daddy aside with such force that Daddy slammed into the wall and slid to the floor, clutching his head. My heart, if I still had one, would have been pounding. I drifted closer, hovering right beside Grandpa Justin as he reached out with a trembling hand. The child lock had deactivated days ago when the power cycle finally ended. He pulled a handle. The heavy glass door clicked and swung open. A wave of foul, metallic, sickeningly sweet air rolled out of the drum, so strong that Grandma Natasha gagged and collapsed on her knees, clutching her chest. Inside, tangled in a pile of damp, sour-smelling adult clothes, was a small, unrecognizable shape. My skin was bloated and bruised in shades of deep purple and sickly green. My limbs were bent at angles that made me look like one of the Transformers Mommy had stomped on. My eyes were half open, clouded over, staring blankly at the ceiling. I looked so scary. I wanted to tell Grandma Natasha not to look to cover her eyes, but she was already screaming. It wasn't a normal scream. It was a sound torn from the very bottom of her soul, a ragged, blood-curdling shriek that tore through the house and seemed to shake the windows. She crawled forward, sobbing hysterically, reaching her shaking hands into the drum before violently pulling back, terrified of hurting my broken body. "Caleb! Oh my God, Caleb! My baby!" she wailed, collapsing onto the floor, pulling her hair as if trying to wake herself from a nightmare. Grandpa Justin didn't scream. He just froze. He stared into the machine, his mouth open in a silent, horrified gasp. Tears began to stream down his weathered cheeks, dropping onto his shirt. He slowly turned around, his eyes locking onto Mommy and Daddy. Mommy was pressed against the furthest wall, shaking her head so fast it looked like she was having a seizure. "I didn't know," she whimpered, her hands covering her ears. "I just wanted to teach him a lesson. I just put him in there to scare him." "Philip, turn it on." Philip pushed the button. "I didn't know he was in there." Daddy screamed back, pointing a trembling finger at Mommy. "You put him in there. You shut the door. You heard him crying." Mommy shrieked, her meticulously applied makeup running down her face in ugly black streaks. "You told me to ignore him. You said he was just throwing a tantrum. You killed him. You killed our son." They were screaming at each other, trying to push the blame away, desperately trying to rewrite the past 5 days. But it didn't matter anymore. Grandpa Justin let out a roar like a wounded animal. He charged at Daddy, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him into the drywall so hard the plaster cracked. "You left him in there," Grandpa Justin roared, spit flying from his lips. "For days. You monsters. You let him rot while you slept in the next room." Grandma Elena was already on her phone, her hands shaking so badly she dropped it twice before dialing 911. "Police," she sobbed into the receiver. "Please, hurry. My daughter killed my grandson." I floated in the middle of the chaos, feeling oddly light. For the last 5 days, I had been desperate for them to notice me, to look in the washing machine, to hear my apologies. But now, watching Mommy curl into a pathetic ball on the floor, weeping and blaming Daddy, and watching Daddy cower under Grandpa's fists, I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt nothing for them. They weren't my Mommy and Daddy anymore. They were just strangers who had hurt me. Within minutes, the wail of sirens pierced the neighborhood. Red and blue lights flashed through the living room windows, painting the walls in frantic colors. Police officers swarmed the house, followed closely by paramedics. When the officers saw the washing machine, they stopped in their tracks. Some of them turned pale. One young officer had to run out the front door and throw up in Mommy's prize flower bed. They drew yellow tape across the laundry room. They put Mommy and Daddy in cold, metal handcuffs. As the officers marched them out the front door, the neighbors had all gathered on their lawns, whispering and pointing. Mommy looked up and saw me, or I thought she did. She looked right at the spot where I was floating by the front door. Her eyes widened, and she let out a piercing scream. "He's right there. Caleb, Caleb, tell them it was an accident. Tell them Mommy loves you. Mommy got you the bathtub. Remember? I loved you." An officer pushed her head down and shoved her into the back of the cruiser. "Shut up, lady. You make me sick." Daddy didn't even look up. He just stared at his shoes, weeping silently as they put him in a separate car. I didn't follow them. I drifted back inside and watched as kind-looking people in white suits gently lifted my body out of the washing machine. They didn't treat me like a discarded rag. They handled me with so much care, wrapping me in a clean, soft white sheet. Grandma Natasha and Grandma Elena were sitting on a couch, clutching Jason. Jason was crying, confused by the loud noises and the flashing lights. Grandma Natasha rocked him back and forth, kissing his forehead while tears streamed down her own face. "We've got you, little one," she whispered brokenly. "We'll never let anyone hurt you. Never." I drifted over and sat next to Jason. I reached out and gently laid my transparent hand over his. He stopped crying for a second, looking around the room, his big brown eyes landing right on me. He couldn't speak in full sentences yet, but he pointed a chubby finger right at my chest. "See," he babbled softly. Grandma Natasha let out a fresh wave of sobs and buried her face in Jason's shoulder. I smiled at my little brother. "I'm right here, Jason. You don't have to protect me. I'll protect you now." The days that followed were a blur of cold rooms and angry voices. As a ghost, time didn't mean much to me, but I found myself pulled to wherever my parents were. I watched their interrogations. They placed Mommy in a gray room with a metal table. A detective slammed a folder down in front of her. It was full of pictures. Pictures of my broken transformers. Pictures of the leftover pork ribs outside. Pictures of the washing machine. "You expect me to believe you didn't hear him?" the detective growled, leaning over the table. "The drum was dented from the inside, Mrs. Tucker. Your son fought for his life. He beat his fists raw against that glass while you were 20 feet away playing with your other child." Mommy couldn't stop shivering. She hugged herself, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. "We had the TV on," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "And the child lock. He was always so naughty. I just wanted to scare him. I forgot Philip started the machine. I swear I forgot." "You forgot," the detective repeated, his voice dripping with venom. "For 5 days? You snapped the heads off his toys because you thought he was throwing a tantrum at his grandmother's house. You were planning to take him to a play date with a boy you knew was violent, just to get a favor. You didn't forget him, Mrs. Tucker. You erased him. In another room, Daddy was trying to save himself. She forced him in there. Daddy cried to his lawyer. She was psychotic when she was mad. I didn't know he was in there when I pressed start. I thought I was just washing Jason's blankets. By the time I heard the thumping, I thought the load was just unbalanced. I swear to God. And when he didn't come out for dinner," his lawyer asked, rubbing his temples. "When the house started to smell, I was busy." Daddy sobbed. "I work full-time. She's the mother. She's supposed to keep track of the kids." It was pathetic. The two people who were supposed to be the center of my world, the people who had built my beautiful bedroom, were now doing everything they could to throw each other under the bus. Their love wasn't real. It was just a performance, and the moment it got hard, they turned into monsters. My funeral was beautiful. They held it on a sunny Tuesday. Both sets of grandparents were there, holding each other up. Hundreds of people came, neighbors, Daddy's co-workers, even Miss Cahill, who looked terribly guilty. My coffin was small and white. The grandparents had covered it in purple flowers, my favorite color. Next to the coffin, they placed a brand new set of transformers, their boxes gleaming in the sunlight. Mommy and Daddy weren't there. The judge hadn't allowed them to leave the jail. I sat on top of my own coffin, swinging my legs, watching the people cry. I felt a strange sense of peace. I wasn't cold, I wasn't choking on soapy water, and I didn't have to worry about making Mommy mad anymore. When it was time to lower the coffin into the ground, Grandpa Justin stood up. He walked over to the microphone, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen him. "Caleb was a good boy," Grandpa Justin said, his voice breaking. "He loved his little brother. He loved his parents. He loved taking baths. He didn't deserve to be thrown away like a piece of garbage. He deserved the world. And from now on, for the rest of our lives, we will make sure his memory is honored. And we will make sure the people who did this rot in a cage, just like they made him do." I floated down and hugged Grandpa Justin's leg. He didn't feel it, but I felt a warm glow spread through my chest. The trial was a media sensation. The washing machine murder, the news channels called it. I didn't go to the courtroom every day. I didn't want to look at mommy and daddy anymore. But I was there on the day of the verdict. They were both dressed in ugly orange jumpsuits, their hair messy and their faces hollow. They looked like strangers. They didn't even look at each other. They sat at separate tables, surrounded by lawyers who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. The jury didn't take long. When the foreperson stood up, the courtroom fell completely silent. We find the defendant, Taylor Tucker, guilty of murder in the first degree and guilty of aggravated child abuse. Mommy let out a wail, her legs giving out as the guards caught her by the arms. We find the defendant, Philip Tucker, guilty of murder in the second degree and guilty of aggravated child neglect. Daddy buried his face in his hands, shaking violently. The judge didn't hold back during sentencing. He looked down at them with absolute disgust. I have presided over this court for 30 years, the judge said, his voice echoing like thunder. I have never seen a case of such callous, unfathomable cruelty. You took a young, innocent life, a child who looked up to you for protection, and you subjected him to an unimaginably terrifying and agonizing death. And then, you ate dinner feet away from his rotting corpse. You are not fit for society. You are not fit to be called parents. You will spend the rest of your natural lives behind bars, without the possibility of parole. May God have mercy on your souls, because this court will not. The gavel slammed down. It sounded like the heavy thunk of my body hitting the metal drum. I watched as they were dragged away. Mommy was screaming my name, begging for forgiveness, crying out for Jason. Daddy was just a hollow shell, stumbling along in chains. I followed Mommy to her cell, just for a moment. It was a tiny, cramped box of concrete and metal bars. There was a metal toilet and a hard bed. It felt a lot like the inside of a washing machine. She sat on the edge of the bed, hugging her knees to her chest, rocking back and forth. I'll give you a bath you'll never forget, she whispered to the empty room, repeating her own wicked words, her mind completely shattered by guilt and grief. I stood in the doorway of her cell. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. Goodbye, Mommy, I whispered. She stopped rocking. She looked up, staring right at the empty space where I stood. For a second, a tear rolled down her cheek, and she reached her hand out. I turned around and walked away. I didn't look back. Years passed. I didn't move on to heaven or wherever ghosts are supposed to go. I realized I was anchored here, not by the trauma of my death, but by the love I had for the people left behind. I moved in with Grandpa Justin and Grandma Natasha. They had taken full custody of Jason. They raised him in a house filled with light, patience, and so much love. They never yelled at him. When he made mistakes, they explained things to him gently. And they never forgot me. My picture was on the mantle. Every year on my birthday, they baked a chocolate cake and bought a new transformer, placing it on a special shelf in Jason's room. Jason grew up into a kind, gentle boy. He loved soccer just like I did. Sometimes when he was playing in the backyard, I would run alongside him, kicking a ghost ball, matching his stride. He didn't remember Mommy and Daddy. They were just bad people he read about on the internet once he was old enough. But he knew about me. Grandpa and Grandma made sure he knew that he had a big brother who loved him very much. One summer evening, when Jason was 8 years old, the same age I was when I died, he was sitting on the porch looking up at the stars. I was sitting right next to him, leaning my head against a wooden railing. It was quiet and peaceful. The fireflies were blinking in the grass. Suddenly, Jason turned his head. He looked right at me. Not through me, but at me. I won my soccer game today, Caleb. He whispered softly into the night air. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread from my head to my toes. I reached out and gently patted his shoulder. I knew he couldn't feel it, but he closed his eyes and leaned into my touch anyway, a small smile playing on his lips. I saw Jason. I whispered back. You were amazing. I used to think I had to be the center of my parents' world to matter. I used to think that if I wasn't the favorite, I was nothing. But sitting there on the porch with my little brother, I realized I didn't need their world at all. I had a new one. And this time, I wasn't trapped inside a cold, dark drum. I was free. I would watch over Jason until he grew old, protecting him just like Mommy and Daddy had asked me to all those years ago. But I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for him. And I was doing it for me.